Welcome to another episode of New Folder 1. On this channel, I dive into the question that intrigued me the most. I don't just rely on AI like ChatGPT, I also explore YouTube, read books, and do a bit of Googling. Then I bring all that knowledge together with Notebook LM to create this podcast for you. I hope you enjoy it.
This is where we
Don't
sift
forget
through
to
stacks of
subscribe and
research, articles, all sorts of sources, really, and pull out the core story, giving you the full picture without you having to read everything yourself.
And today, we're definitely diving deep. We're heading somewhere pretty remote, high up in the mountains of Shikoku in Japan. It's this place that's beautiful, yes, but also, well, kind of unsettlingly populated. We're talking about Nagoro Village.
Yeah, the first thing you need to grasp about Nagoro is this really striking statistic. If you just looked at the numbers, you might think it's one of the most densely populated villages anywhere.
Right, but there's a huge catch.
A massive catch, because when you count the residents, you have to include hundreds and hundreds of life-size figures made of, well, straw and cloth.
So you show up maybe expecting a ghost town, something completely empty, but instead you find what looks like a functioning community, just frozen. Still.
The numbers really tell the story, don't they? Our sources consistently put let's call it the visible population, at over 350 figures. Sometimes the estimates push closer to 400.
And these are kakakashi, the Japanese word for scarecrows, but they're way beyond your typical garden scarecrow. These are full-scale human replicas.
Life-sized. But then you look at the actual human population, the living, breathing people.
And it's tiny.
Yeah.
It hovers somewhere between just 27 and maybe 30 residents, give or take.
So you've got this completely inverted structure, like roughly 10 straw figures for every one actual person. It's extraordinary.
It's more than just extraordinary. It's almost like a living visual metaphor, isn't it? For this huge demographic crisis that's hitting rural Japan really hard. These figures, they're literally standing in place. Placeholders for the hundreds of people who used to live there, work there, raise families there.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack the story behind Nagoro, or Kakashi no Sato, as it's often called, Scarecrow Village. We need to look past the kind of eerie surface, Yeah,
get to the human element.
Exactly. Understand the woman behind it all, Tsukimi Ayano, how she took her own grief and loneliness of this emptying village and turned it into this huge, incredible ongoing memorial. A tribute to a community that's, well, fading away.
Okay, so to really get Nagoro, you have to understand its location first. Where it is physically is so important. Isolation isn't just background scenery. It's like a main character in this whole story.
Right. And when we say isolation, we're not talking, a quick drive out from the city. Where exactly is Nagoro?
It's tucked deep, deep into the Aya Valley. That's in Tokushima Prefecture on Shikoku Island. Now, technically, it's part of the larger city of Miyoshi, but that doesn't really mean much in practical terms.
Why is that?
Because the valley itself is famous for these incredibly steep, winding roads. Sometimes they feel like they're just sort of carved precariously right into the mountainside. Getting there takes effort.
Yeah, the sources keep mentioning that. You need an adventurous spirit just to make the trip. It's not a casual day out.
Absolutely not. The landscape itself almost resists settlement, And travel accounts really bear this out. People trying to visit outside of peak summer. Gets tricky.
How so?
Well, one account I read talked about trying to get there in early winter. Taxi drivers, even private car services, were actively discouraging them, saying, don't go.
Because of the weather?
Exactly. Heavy snow. It can just completely shut down those narrow mountain roads, make them totally impassable, sometimes for days.
So the isolation isn't just picturesque, it's a real practical barrier. It directly contributes to the village fading, doesn't it? If getting in and out is that hard.
Precisely. Maintaining a community, basic services, infrastructure, it all becomes incredibly difficult. And that lack of connection, it just speeds up the process of abandonment.
But it wasn't always like this, right? Nagoro had a past.
Oh, definitely. It used to be quite a vibrant place, actually.
Yeah.
Capable of supporting several hundred people. It wasn't always this quiet.
Which brings us to why it emptied out. We know it reflects that bigger Japanese trend. But Nagoro had its own specific trigger, didn't it? Economic roots.
That's right. The key driver was the local economy. A lot of the residents, for decades really, worked on a big dam project nearby in the valley. Construction first, then operation.
So stable work, good jobs.
Yeah, reliable working-class jobs that kept the village going, kept families there. But then technology changed things. as it often does in these situations.
The dam was automated.
Exactly. Automation came in, and suddenly those hands-on jobs, the ones supporting the village, they just disappeared almost overnight.
The economic rug pulled out from under them.
Pretty much. The foundation crumbled. And people, especially younger families needing work, they had little choice. They had to leave, follow the jobs elsewhere. That specific shock, that's what really started the slow emptying out of Nagoro.
And what makes Nagoro so powerful, I think, is how perfectly it mirrors that larger crisis across rural Japan. It's like a microcosm.
It really is the perfect case study.
Hmm.
You have this national issue, an aging population, a low birth rate, and younger generations overwhelmingly drawn to the big cities. Tokyo, Osaka.
Where the jobs are, the convenience, the excitement.
Right, and the countryside towns, the villages like Nagoro, they're left struggling. Struggling to keep residents, to maintain basic services, even just to seem appealing anymore.
So when a village like Nagoro loses its economic base and that infrastructure starts to fray, what does that leave behind in terms of people?
Well, the picture is pretty stark. When the sources talk about those 27 to 30 remaining residents, they're describing an almost entirely elderly population.
Close to retirement age or well past it?
Exactly. Living often on pensions, maybe a little farming. And here's the kicker, the real sign. A community is reaching its endpoint. There are no children left. Zero.
Wow, no kids at all. That lack of the next generation, it means the village doesn't just shrink, it effectively has an expiration date, doesn't it?
It does. There's no one to take over the homes, look after the place, carry on traditions. It's just fading.
So the quietness you mentioned, it's layered. It's the natural quiet of the remote mountains, but it's also the quiet of people leaving.
A profound silence, really. And it's that quiet, that sort of desperation that really sets the stage for the main figure in our story, for Tsukimi Ayano.
Okay, let's shift focus now to the heart of this whole thing, Tsukimi Ayano. She's known as the scarecrow mother, right? Her story is fascinating. It's about return and loneliness and this incredible burst of creativity.
Yeah, Ayano-san's life story kind of follows the village's own path in a way. She actually grew up in Nagoro back when it was more bustling.
She remembers it differently.
Absolutely. But like many others, seeking better opportunities, she left as a young woman, moved to Osaka, one of Japan's biggest cities, built a life there.
A standard path for many from rural areas, the modern city life. But then, around 2002, something changed. She came back.
She did. The reason was fundamentally about family. She returned to Nagoro specifically to care for her aging father. It's a very common, very respected thing in Japanese culture, that sense of duty.
But in doing that, she basically swapped the noise and crowds of Osaka for, well, the silence of Nagoro.
Exactly. And the contrast must have been immense. Imagine going from millions of people, constant activity, to this valley where, the loudest sound might be the wind.
That must have hit hard psychologically.
It really did. She spoke about feeling this intense sadness, almost a crushing sense of loneliness. She used the phrase extreme depopulation. The village she remembered, filled with childhood memories, it just felt hollowed out, empty, like being surrounded by ghosts.
So she's back home, dealing with her father's aging, grappling with this loss of her community, and this is what leads to the scarecrows. Around 2003.
Yes, 2003 is the year it starts. And the origin story is really interesting because it wasn't planned at all. No grand artistic vision, no thought of a memorial initially.
It's practical.
Completely practical. She just needed a scarecrow for her garden. The usual reason, keep the birds and maybe some animals away from her crops.
A totally normal thing to do if you're gardening.
Right. But here's where it takes that turn, that twist of fate, really.
The first doll. Tell us about that one.
Well, in what seems like a really personal, poignant act, she decided to model that first scarecrow specifically after her own father.
Wow.
Yeah, gave it his sort of height, his posture, dressed it in his old clothes. And the key moment, the catalyst for everything that followed, happened almost as soon as she put it out in the field.
What happened? People saw it.
People saw it. Passers-by, the few neighbors she still had. They genuinely mistook this incredibly lifelike figure standing there in her father's typical way for the man himself.
No way.
Yes. They'd pause, maybe smile, and actually greet the scarecrow, say hello. For a moment, it created this illusion that the village wasn't quite so empty, that someone familiar was still there.
That must have been incredibly powerful for her to see that reaction. It proved something, didn't it? That these figures could actually evoke presence.
It was the light bulb moment, the absolute key inspiration. And right then, the purpose shifted. It went from just protecting your vegetables to something much, much bigger.
A creative mission took over.
Yeah, it kind of crystallized into two main goals, you could say. One was very visual, very immediate.
To make the village look less empty.
Exactly, to visually repopulate it. To fill those empty doorways, those silent benches, and push back against that constant visual reminder of decline and abandonment. To make it look alive again, even if it was an illusion.
But there was a deeper purpose, too, right? More emotional.
That was the memorialization part. That became the core of it, really.
Creating placeholders for the people who were gone.
Yes. The dolls started becoming these individual monuments, each one representing someone who had either passed away or someone who had moved away to the cities. They were made intentionally to help cope with that loss, that collective grief of the shrinking community.
So each doll isn't just filling space, it's holding a memory.
Precisely. It's an anchor for a specific person's story. A way to make sure that the sadness of them leaving didn't mean they were completely forgotten, completely erased from the place they belonged to.
It's an incredible amount of work, a constant effort. Like she's single-handedly refusing to let the village be forgotten.
It's a huge act of defiance, really. Using her own hands, hours and hours of labor, day after day, in this incredibly quiet valley, just refusing to accept that final silence.
And that refusal takes not just skill, but this massive ongoing investment, physical, emotional, year after year.
So let's talk about the result of all that effort, this emotional inventory that's now scattered all over Nagoro. The sheer number is just hard to comprehend. Over 350, maybe pushing 400 figures in this tiny place.
And it bears repeating. Every single one is handmade by her, by Tsukimi Ayano, one person.
Yeah, when you think about the time involved, if it takes roughly 3 days per doll, I mean, she's dedicating a huge portion of her life just to creating and maintaining this silent population. It's mind-boggling.
What really lifts it beyond just a quirky project, though, is how personal each one is. These aren't generic mannequins.
Not at all. That's the crucial part. Each doll is meant to represent a specific, real person from the village's past or present. They're individualized. They're intended to bring back a particular memory, a particular face.
So each one has its own identity.
Yes. Ayano-san gives each Kakashi a unique personality, a name, an age, often a little backstory tied to the person it honors.
She's like the village historian, but her archive is made of straw.
She really is, and she's meticulous about it.
Oh.
She keeps this dedicated logbook, the Scarecrow Registry.
A scarecrow registry. Seriously.
Yeah. She records who each doll represents, where it's placed in the village, when she made it, which is vital, actually, because they don't last forever. She needs to track them to ensure the memory persists, even when the physical doll needs replacing.
Right, we'll get to the maintenance aspect, but this level of detail, this personalization, it creates these incredibly arresting scenes for anyone visiting, doesn't it? This atmosphere that's uncanny, but also kind of surreal.
Oh, absolutely. Visitors often talk about just stopping in their tracks when they first arrive. You round a bend, and there are figures waiting patiently at a bus stop, just staring down the empty mountain road.
Waiting for a bus that probably rarely, if ever, comes.
Exactly. Or you see them working in the fields, like that very first one, still fulfilling that original purpose.
And they're posed in ways that suggest the human interactions the village now lacks, right?
Definitely. You'll see pairs chatting on benches, groups maybe looking like they're gossiping, some even posed doing road work. And there are bigger scenes, too. One setup apparently depicts an entire wedding party.
A wedding. Wow. So the village feels animated by these still figures. It suggests this density of life that hasn't been real there for maybe 20 years or more.
It really does. But probably the most powerful, most emotional example of her work has to be the old elementary school.
Ah, yes, the school. That feels like where the loss of the future generation really hits home.
It's the emotional center of Kakashi no Sado, I think.
Yeah.
The school closed its doors for good in 2012, and it was a direct result of the depopulation. Just weren't enough kids left.
How many were left at the very end?
Just 2. Only 2 students in the entire village by the time it closed.
2 kids. That's heartbreaking. And didn't those last 2 students, didn't they make their own scarecrows before they left?
They did. It's such a poignant detail, like their own final contribution, their own goodbye to the village before they too had to leave the valley.
So what's the school like now?
Well, school is permanently in session now. Ayano-san has filled the classrooms. Doll students sit at the desks, looking attentive.
Facing the front.
Yeah, paying full attention, as one source put it, to the doll teacher who's positioned perfectly at the blackboard, even holding a piece of chalk.
It's like a perfectly preserved moment of learning, but silent.
Completely silent. And the detail goes beyond the classroom. There are dolls in the gymnasium, frozen in mid-activity. And maybe the strangest detail is in the principal's office.
What's in there?
A doll figure, looking stern, apparently presiding over a parent-teacher meeting, conducted entirely by other dolls.
It's quite something. And the building itself is part of the memorial, too, isn't it? Things left behind.
Exactly. Old trophies are still in display cases, school documents, even children's artwork might still be on the walls. It adds another layer to the sense of loss. The dolls aren't just there, they're interacting with the physical remnants of the past.
It's like she's using the abandoned buildings as stages for this ongoing play about memory.
That's a great way to put it. The empty village is her canvas.
Let's talk about the sheer effort involved. We mentioned 3 days per doll. Can we dig into the actual making of them? What goes into creating one of these lifelike Kakashi?
Sure. That 3-day figure is probably a baseline. It starts with the frame, the structure, often wire, or maybe a wooden stake to get the posture right. That's key to making them look natural, not just like slumped sacks.
Gotta have good posture.
Right. Then the body itself is built up, typically using rolled up newspapers packed tightly, and straw. That gives it bulk and shape.
And then the outer layers. What gives them the human form?
They're padded heavily with batting, like you'd use in quilting to give them a softer, more rounded form. And then they're dressed in old clothes.
And crucially, the clothes often belong to the actual people they represent.
Yes, that's often the case. Ayano-san tries to use clothing donated by families or items that belong to the departed residents. It creates this really tangible link, doesn't it? Wrapping the memory literally around the figure.
A physical connection to the past and the faces. That seems like the hardest part to get right.
That requires the most artistry for sure. Often using stretched stocking material or white fabric over stuffing, the expressions come from simple stitching. But she manages to convey a hint of a smile, maybe a thoughtful gaze, melancholy. It's those faces that really make people do a double take.
Which brings us to a really critical point about this whole project. Her work is never actually finished, is it? Because these creations are fundamentally temporary.
They're incredibly fragile, especially the ones outside. They're exposed to everything the mountains can throw at them: sun, rain, snow, wind, humidity.
So they don't last long.
No, the average lifespan for an outdoor doll is only about 3 years, sometimes less.
3 years. That means she's constantly having to remake the entire population, essentially, or do major repairs.
It's a constant cycle, a truly Sisyphean task, you could say. She's always battling decay. Sometimes she tries things like adding a waterproof layer under the clothes, maybe some plastic sheeting, to try and extend their life a bit.
But the weather always wins in the end.
The elements always win. So this constant need for maintenance, for replacement, it just underscores the incredible dedication involved. She has to keep working just to keep this ghost town looking alive.
Her labor is unending because memory itself needs constant tending, maybe.
That's a really insightful way to think about it, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, all of this, the scale, the incredible backstory, the visuals, it inevitably attracted attention, didn't it? Huge international attention.
Right. It basically put this otherwise unknown fading valley on the global map. Nagoro became this really unique tourist spot, not for beaches or theme parks, but for something else.
Yeah, drawing photographers, journalists, people interested in, Japanese culture, aging societies, or just deeply human, slightly strange stories.
It's a sort of melancholy tourism, isn't it? People aren't coming for bustling activity. They're coming to see this quiet, artistic reflection on loss and memory.
Exactly. But what's really interesting is how the actual residents, the few remaining humans, feel about all this attention. You might think they'd resent having their village's decline turned into a spectacle.
But that's not the case.
No, quite the opposite, according to the sources. They are, of course, completely aware of what's happening to their village. They know its fate. There's no denial there.
They live it every day.
Right. But apparently they're quite happy when people come out and share their story.
Why do you think that is? It's not like tourism brings a huge economic boom, surely.
Probably not in a big way.
Yeah.
But it seems to be more about validation, about acknowledgement. As one source put it, nobody wants to be forgotten.
So the dolls and the visitors they bring are proof. Proof that their lives, their village's history, it mattered. It's being seen, remembered, even globally.
Exactly. It fights against that erasure.
Yeah.
And it has actually injected a little bit of new energy socially. They've even started holding events centered around the Kakashi.
Like a festival.
Yeah, there's an annual scarecrow festival, usually the first Sunday in October. Brings in visitors, gets some media coverage. And Ayano-san herself, she actually holds workshops.
Workshops for visitors. so you can learn to make one.
Apparently so. Imagine that experience, getting hands-on, participating directly in this act of remembrance alongside her.
That would be incredible. It creates a real connection. Speaking of connections, you mentioned a story about an unexpected encounter there.
Oh yeah, it was one of my favorite little anecdotes from the research. This traveler was there, soaking in the quiet, the atmosphere, and they bump into this guy, unexpectedly. And he's carrying a guitar case in the middle of nowhere, basically.
A guitarist in Nagoro.
Turns out he was a professional musician, just happened to be in the valley on a private fishing trip. And the traveler mentioned they played guitar too.
Don't tell me they had a jam session.
They did.
Wow.
Right there, spontaneously, amidst the silent dolls of Nagoro. A totally unplanned burst of music and connection in this place defined by silence.
That perfectly illustrates the paradox, doesn't it? The dolls represent absence, but they draw people in, creating these new, real moments of life that wouldn't happen otherwise.
Exactly. And Ayano-san herself is a huge part of that draw. She's not some reclusive artist.
People mention her warmth.
Yes, she's known for giving visitors the warmest welcome. Happy to chat, share the stories behind the dolls, and her fame, this project's fame, has even taken her outside Japan.
Really? Where's she been?
Well, we know she's traveled internationally. Visited Singapore, for instance. Apparently even stayed at the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, that iconic building. Just shows how this very personal, very local art has resonated globally.
So when we pull back and look at the bigger picture, what does Nagoro ultimately represent in the context of modern Japan?
I think it serves as this incredibly potent, visible symbol of Japan's dying countryside lifestyle. It's a painful illustration of a massive socioeconomic shift that's affected countless places.
But it's not just a symbol of decline.
No, because through Ayano-san's incredible dedication, that story of decline, of loss, has been transformed. It's become this globally recognized monument to memory, to resilience, maybe even to love. It takes a local tragedy and elevates it into something universal about aging, loss, and how we remember.
And it really makes you think about the sheer weight of her ongoing work. It's not just art, it's this constant battle against decay, against forgetting.
It's an immense personal commitment. Time, energy, emotion, day in, day out. But for her, it seems essential. The village keeps living because she keeps creating.
So we started this journey in the quiet, isolated Aya Valley, and we've ended up exploring this incredible emotional landscape created by one woman, Tsukimi Ayano.
Yeah, thinking about her journey. Leaving Osaka, coming back to care for her father, facing that profound loneliness, and then finding this way to channel it into this vast, ongoing creative act of remembering.
It's just an exhausting commitment, you have to imagine, but also profoundly beautiful. Every single figure she makes, every stitch, it feels like a promise not to let the people of Nagoro, the ones who died, the ones who just had to leave, fade away completely.
Yeah, not letting them be erased from the place itself.
And that central paradox, it just stays with you, doesn't it? This village where actual human life is undeniably, inevitably fading. It's kept alive, kept relevant, visually anyway, by these inanimate objects.
Each Kakashi being this carefully made monument to a specific person, a specific memory.
Which brings us back to that practical detail we discussed, their fragility.
Right. That 3-year average lifespan for the outdoor dolls. The constant exposure to the elements means they decay. They need replacing. Ayano-san's work is literally never done just to maintain the status quo.
So that leads us to the final thought we wanted to leave you with. It stems directly from that endless cycle of creation and decay.
If the dolls themselves are so temporary, always weathering, always needing to be remade, does that constant necessary act of making them become a form of perpetual grieving, a way she processes the village's slow disappearance over and over?
Or is it the opposite? Is the relentless work itself not about grief, but actually an act of determined, hopeful defiance? Is she fighting back against the forgetting?
Does the memory only exist as long as the physical doll stands there? Or is it the act itself, the unwavering dedication to not letting those memories be erased, that becomes the thing that truly endures?
It really makes you think about what defines a community, doesn't it? And the incredible lengths people will go to hold on to the memory of those they've lost, those they love.
Definitely something to ponder.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the village of the silent people.